Hello, welcome to the Health In Show, an affiliate program of Homeopathy World Community. You've come to the right place to tune in and participate with your comments and questions. Love is the greatest healer of all. But sometimes, in order to change our emotions, we must take action in other spheres of our lives. We speak with experts in alternative and complementary health fields and hope you will benefit in some small or great way. Remember, you are wherever your thoughts are. Make sure your thoughts are where you want to be.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day, good Tuesday, good Monday, good Wednesday, wherever you are in the world. We welcome you, and we're so delighted that you're here with us today. We have a very exciting show as we do each and every month, and this is a subject that I think we all love, and we love to explore, we love to expand, we love to get into. But before we do that, I just want to let you all know that the Health In Show is a subsidiary of the Homeopathy World Community. And we do all kinds of events. We do book clubs, we do newsletters, we do all kinds of learning opportunities and ways of networking. And what we would love to do is invite you all in to join us, right? You don't have to be a homeopath to be part of Homeopathy World Community. You just have to be interested in yourself, in your personal health and well-being, and the health and well-being of your family, friends, and the planet. So please come look us up and join us and participate in anything. We'd love to have you make suggestions. You're all welcome. And so during the show, you can come in on our chat, you can call us, you can, whatever you like. Skype as well. So join us at 919-518-9773. That is our phone number right into our studio. And if you have a question, a comment, anything, let us hear from you. Put your name underneath the video and you can join our chat. You don't have to use your real name. You can just use whatever nickname you like, and you can comment there as well. We will be watching it. And also you can come in on Skype, and that would be at computers and the number 2K voice, and that will be voice, not video. So don't worry about what you look like. Doesn't matter. What matters is who you are and what you want to say and how you can join us today and what you will take away from the show and what you will give it. So that is the most important thing. So before I have the pleasure of introducing our guest, I want to introduce to you two very special people. Hannah Shalom, good morning or good afternoon.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you are.
And
It's
Hannah,
a pleasure to be here.
And tell everybody where you're from and what you do.
So I am the Director of Education at Homeopathy World Community, and I am a homeopath. I work between Toronto and Los Angeles and my own clinic, and I specialize in pathology and oncology.
Lovely. And we're always happy to have Hannah around. And then our favorite Deepak, tell everybody about you.
Yes, hello everyone. Welcome to the Health In Show. Once again, we are having a wonderful topic on the astrology. We are talking with the Steve today. And I am an executive director of Homeopathy World Community, and I'm a homeopathic physician and an educator. I'm a professor in the Department of Pediatrics in the Medical College in India. And I'm running my 10 clinics all over the world. So we are here to spread the knowledge throughout the world. So welcome everyone and welcome to our speaker Steve. Thank you. Thank you, Marlene.
It's my pleasure, Deepak. And just for all of you out there that just to know that Deepak has been on this show for how many years?
So Health-In, I just started a Health-In with Debbie Bruck. Debbie Bruck started in 2012, the first show. And the first lecture was mine on the dream of the snake and the connection with the homeopathy. So it was a nice time when I, Amnan, and Debbie Bruck, we all together started this show, and we do every week on every Monday. Now we are doing it every second Tuesday of the month, but initially we started every week on a Monday. So I remember Debbie in my heart. Debbie is like my mother, and I miss her very much. So this is the history of Health In, and we are just continuing, and Health In never be ended. Health In will always give a knowledge to everyone and spreading the knowledge throughout the world.
Well, we're so grateful for you and love you for being around for so many years. And that, in my calculations, that's about 11 or 12. That's a long time.
Yeah.
Once again, before I introduce our guests, I also want to make a note to let you all know that Homeopathy World Community produces a magazine called Clever H. And Hannah has been busy at work the last, goodness gracious, it seems like an hour. And she has been putting together the magazine for January. And it goes hand in hand with our show. So there is expert advice, expert information, expert guidance for anybody who is interested in health and well-being. And Hannah, you want to give any kind of little kudos or updates on that?
Absolutely. In the January magazine, we have a beautiful update on healthy diet, on beautiful remedies and simple cases where you are able to understand how you can apply different group of remedies or remedy into yourself, your life. Of course, we have a fascinating advice from other beautiful practitioners. I also have an article from Deepak, thank you, from Uta Middlestadt in Portugal. So we're trying to put together, actually not trying, we already put together a phenomenal magazine for you for January to welcome you into the new year with beautiful, blissful peace and healthy diet and healthy perspective on your upcoming year and how you are able to implement new changes in your life. Because remember, you are the most important person to you, and then everybody else comes along. So we are here for you.
Perfect. And so every article, every story, every picture, every anything that is in that magazine will be given to you from a homeopathic perspective. So that is what's so important about this. It comes with a philosophy that fosters homeopathy. So be sure to come to our website, Homeopathy World Community, and register for the newsletter. If you have any questions at all, please private message me anytime. Write me at Marilyn, Marilyn, at Marilyn Shannon, SHANNON.com. And I will be happy to help you. So now, Steve. We started talking so much before the show started, we had to stop ourselves because we didn't want to get into so much and it was so interesting. So, Steve, why don't you first introduce yourself? Tell everybody about you.
My name is Steve Judd. I am a professional astrologer. I've been studying astrology since 1977. I've been doing readings for people since 1982. And since 1999, up until recently, doing astrological readings has been my only source of income. Since the pandemic, since the start of 2020, 2021, I've been teaching astrology relentlessly on Zoom, and I have now a number of students who have now graduated and gone on to become proper astrologers. I'm a writer, broadcaster on all things astrologically related, and astrology is my life. What more can I say?
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, when you begin talking about what you do, I certainly, when I heard about you, I certainly heard that passion for astrology, and it's your life. I think the first question I want to ask is why?
Why?
Why? Just a simple question. Why is astrology so important to you?
Because it gives a completely objective, detached, and impersonal perspective on affairs of both humanity at the individual and the collective level. It gives a relationship with the heavens that gives a sense of purpose, philosophy, and unity that no other form of divinatory art gives. Astrology is a mixture of mathematics, geometry, intuition, and psychology. Without them all being together, you can't do astrology. This is what makes it so different from anything else in the world. And the fact that astrology has outlasted every single government, every religion, every belief system. Astrology has been around in written form for an absolute minimum of 10 to 11,000 years. I suspect a hell of a lot longer than that. And I think that astrology really started when a hominid on the East Kenyan plain got up off its knuckles about 1 million years ago and looked up and went, oh, wow, this light's moving up there. Let's make legends. Let's make stories. And that's where the start of humanity's relationship with the heavens really began.
Anna, you have
Yes, I think it's absolutely fascinating. And I would want to know, how did you discover astrology? When did you get the interest and went into your wings of exploration in astrology? How did you came across?
There's two answers to that. One is historic, one is more contemporary. At a
Mm-hmm.
historic level, when I left home when I was 15, I joined the army. And the army when they realized that I wasn't very good at driving tanks or aiming guns, they ran a lot of intelligence tests on me and found out I was really good with non-Latin languages that use pattern more than words. So I started translating hieroglyphs or Cyrillic, or in some cases Sanskrit, because from a Western perspective, these are not linear or rational patterns. When I left the army at age 20 in 1975, I then fell into the hippie world for a couple of years, and someone gave me an ephemeris. An ephemeris is like a giant bus timetable where you see the planet's positions for every day of every month of every year for 100 years. And it's just like a bus timetable or train timetable. And I looked at this ephemeris and I realized I could see patterns in the numbers, because at the end of the day, astrology is just pattern recognition. And when you can recognize these patterns and see them repeated in slightly different forms, in different people at different times in different situations, you can translate those patterns into meaning. And that gave me a sense of awe, because I realized that there was more to humanity than just what was being presented to me by more conventional systems. More contemporarily, in recent years, by which I mean within the last 5 years, and I'm 68 now, I've made a breakthrough where I've been working with old ideas from Hindu astrology around karma and reincarnation, and reinvented those words from a Western perspective to define things like mission statement, purpose, and reason why you volunteered to come to planet Earth in the first place. And when I started working with these concepts, it kind of dispelled my old-fashioned ideas around death. And I realized that astrology, in connection with this, was no longer an it. It was more of a she. It has valence, life force. And I can prove, for example, that the position of the planets in the sky, their distance from each other and their orbital rotations, and the patterns of absolute precision that they make with each other is not random. Beyond that, I choose not to speculate. But there is purpose out there. And one of the oldest dictums in astrology is as above, so below. The microcosm reflects the macrocosm. So as the patterns in the sky change, so the patterns in humanity change. And we can choose to dance with those patterns and evolve, or we can choose to stagnate.
Absolutely phenomenal journey that you have came across. And of course, collecting all the knowledge and all the information to better people's life or choices is definitely phenomenal. I follow through with the next question. I'm so really excited with your journey. There's so many different types of astrology, and a common person will say, "What's the difference between the modern astrology, Vedic astrology, ancient astrology?" And you said you practice abnormal astrology, so I really would like to explore that. Yeah.
The difference between ancient and modern astrology is that up until the late 1700s and the mid-1800s. We had no idea of the existence of the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, Chiron, Pluto. These have only been around over the last 250 years. Pluto was only discovered less than 100 years ago. Chiron was only discovered 45, 50 years ago. Up until relatively recently, the last sort of 6 or 7 generations of humanity, the archetypes of the modern planets, i.e. transformation, neuroses, psychology, have been unknown to us. Prior to the 1750s, 90% of us were working in the fields, and there was no new technology, no spirituality beyond the Orthodox convention. The difference between Western and Vedic astrology, as I understand it, and this is a personal viewpoint, I stress, is that the astrology of the East, whether it comes from Japan, China, the Orient, or whether it comes from Sanskrit, the Hindu, Sikh, is much more related to fate, destiny, predetermination, karma, reincarnation. But I suggest that's because for many times over the last 1,000 or 2,000 years, much of those countries' population have been living in relative poverty. So they've built this philosophy of ascribing that if they're good this lifetime, their next lifetime will be better for them. Whereas in the West, it's more orientated around less fate, destiny, and predetermination, and more free will, choice, and self-determination. So,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
shoot.
I just wanted Deepak looked like he had something, right? Did you have a question to ask about?
Yes. So, Steve, you are doing the astrology since when I am coming. I came on this earth since my birth. So I am just little one, and you are doing the astrology from 77. So I want to understand because I'm not an astrologer and I'm not studying astrology many times. So for whom astrology is needed? For everyone, or the person who are having any illness, or who are is in trouble? Because many of the patient coming with us, that doctor, since this time I am seeing that I am ill. I have a cancer. I have a headache. So I met with the astrologer, and astrologer said that you had this disease for the several months or for the several years. So being a doctor, being a medical doctor, I do not believe in the astrology part, because I am just diagnosed a migraine, or I am just diagnosis a disease. So for whom, for which person is astrology needed? For everyone, or for the diseased person, or who is having the trouble in their life? So where I recommend you should go for the astrologer.
Thing is, Deepak, I've studied astrology so long now that, first of all, I need to be very clear. The planets impel, they don't compel. Okay? From my perspective, nothing is cast in stone, and free will rules above all else. What one person will see as a time of depression, melancholy, another person will see as an opportunity to kick themselves up the backside and actually make something of their life. Having said that, I can give you thousands, if not tens of thousands, of statistics where I can spot the potential for certain illnesses and diseases in a way that, if I see certain patterns, I know that that person will have at least a 40 to 50% potential for being sensitive to a particular form of illness or disease. For example, I can spot arthritis. I can spot diabetes 2. I can spot electrical nerve problems. Now, this doesn't mean that everyone with these patterns will then develop that illness, but it does mean there's a stronger potential than average for them to do this. And if I make the client aware of these potentials, many of them would already know that they've got these potentials anyway. I can then help them find the best times and the best ways to counteract these symptoms to improve their life.
So
I would never call myself a
you
doctor.
are you looking at astrology to
Yes,
decipher these patterns, right?
yes,
So can you give us an example of what that
yes.
would look like? And then my next question to follow that, and then I know Hannah and Deepak, I'm sure have more, is how do you quantum physically not, because you're the observer. So how does that affect what you're looking at, I guess is my question. So question number one is, how do you use astrology? And then question two is, how does quantum physics affect what you're looking at and how you're observing the theme or the astrology?
I love these questions. This is exactly why I'm here, because this is solid, proper questioning. Good. If I see a horoscope, which is a two-dimensional representation of the planet's positions in the sky at the moment of your birth, and I see, for example, the moon in the horoscope is the other side of the sky, exactly opposite the planet Venus. These are the two planets that over millennia have been associated with feelings, emotions, the moon, and feelings of value and worth and being loved with Venus. When you have two planets opposite each other, pulling each other apart, with the moon and Venus opposite each other, this is so classic a situation in people's charts where they go, I can never be loved enough. No matter how much I'm loved, it's never going to be good enough. Poor me, where's the sugar? Where's the cake? Where's the chocolates? Hence diabetes 2. I can also see when Neptune is the planet that's most commonly associated with the glandular systems, with eyesight, with sinusitis, asthma, with the cloggy stuff in the body, the viscous fluids. So when I see someone with the sun or the moon opposite or square to Neptune, it's a fairly safe bet to say that they're going to be wearing glasses before they're 30. This will happen with 35% of people with these positions. Again, it's never going to be 100%, because if there were, astrology would rule the world and I wouldn't want to practice it, because it's free will all the way down the line. But astrology guides, it doesn't predict. Anyone who says they can predict the future is wrong. But it's excellent for diagnoses and hints on timings on how to manifest the best opportunities, when the best windows of opportunity to improve one's health or to manage lifestyle management will occur. And with regard to how I affect my clients and how I influence the chart just by observing them, yes, of course, particle wave stuff. You know, until you observe it, it's not happening. But by observing it, you influence it. I love Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, for example. You can't be. I pride myself on my capacity to be objective, detached, and impersonal when looking at a chart. But at the same time, I try and imbue the client with passion, with joy, and a feeling of self-empowerment, so that they can then choose to try and improve their lives. Most clients go away feeling self-empowered, that they really want to get their life back on track. So, yeah, I have to own the fact that I might just be making it all up. I might just be kidding myself. But if I am, I'm having a great time doing it. And I know, because I've got so many statistics now, I've done over 25,000, 30,000 readings in my life. 95% of those clients will come back because they know that I'm telling them things that help them. Not necessarily what they want to hear, but that help them. This is why astrology is so different to anything else. It is not a science. It is not an art. It is somewhere between the two.
Sounds like a
So,
system.
sir, which method you are using, or which method you prefer? Like in India, astrologer, what they are doing, they collect the date of birth, they collect the place of the birth, and they collect the exact time of the birth. So they calculate them and they make a kundi in our language. They are forming a square and like that. So
Yes.
which method you are using for the astrology?
I have a number of Indian astrological colleagues, and I love sitting down and arguing with them about which system is better. First of all, as I repeat myself, you cannot. Indian Vedic astrology does like to make predictions about this is the best time to get married, or this is the time where you might die, or this is and Western astrology doesn't really do that. Western astrology will go, well, this is the best potential time if you choose to go down this route. Again, it's the difference between fate and free will. The thing is, and this is one of the paradoxes, is that in India, because people have been brought up in that culture, in that environment, it works for them. Many of my Indian clients will swear by Vedic astrology, and they'll come to me as a Western astrologer to get a different perspective, but they'll still go back and practice Vedic astrology because they know it works for them. Western clients come to me, and because I'm a Western astrologer, and I can help them, but then they'll go to a Vedic astrologer to get a different perspective. Neither is better or worse, but I've been brought up in the Western tradition, so I cannot, in all truth, be that objective about the Indian astrological ways. So I'm sorry, but I can't really answer that question as objectively as I'd like to be able to.
I will have a question
Yes.
right here following through with I guess supporting Deepak here in a minute, because in homeopathy, it doesn't matter what you believe, it just give you a remedy. And most of the time, works. It's the right remedy, the right potency. We might make changes here and there. And so, as Deepak mentioned, for example, in Vedic astrology, we're looking at, let's say now there is a cycle of Saturn, Rahu. We are on the cycle of Jupiter transitioning to Aries. We know that we are in Rahu subcycle for some of the signs that were coming up at the end of the year. We also know from Kabbalistic astrology that every month there is a moon, and that moon influences everyone, no matter what sign you are, to a particular area, one way or another. But I would have a question. What would be the difference between a person coming in for reading with you or coming in with, hypothetically, my Vedic astrologer and not getting the same answers? If there is a influence of stars or influence of planet or cycle that may indicate, let's say, financial difficulties or loneliness or separation or marriage, how would that differ between your take and someone else's take?
If a person came in with the same questions to 10 different astrologers from all different cultures, they would get 10 different sets of answers. But
Wow.
there would be a recurring theme running through those answers, which they would then be able to build a consensus out of.
I see.
Okay, so, and you talked about the coming times ahead. The transition of the outer planets from feminine into masculine signs over the next 2 to 3 years, all of it happening at very close to each other. I have traced this back using my laptop and the programs I have. This has never happened in human history before, ever. I've gone back 20,000 years. So it does seem to me that the times of the coming 2 or 3 years are absolutely pivotal in defining the evolution of humanity in a way that simply never happened before. It's almost as if everything we've done so far has been a training and a drill for the real thing. And perhaps the single biggest way of translating this from my perspective is that just since the invention and the development of the internet, in the last 25, 30 years, the amount of development individuals have made in their own consciousness and their own spirituality has radically escalated. More and more people are making their own minds up about the nature of the world around them, relying less and less on governments, corporations, banks, and religions. And there's so many different alternative therapies out there now that simply were not in the public eye 30 years ago. Astrology and homeopathy are an example of this. But now, you can pick and choose from what you want. But as I said to you earlier, to me, homeopathy, acupuncture, and astrology are on the cutting edge of what I call the consciousness revolution. Other therapies, which are perhaps a little more gentle, are complementary, but they're not hardcore. And I feel that the business of the next 2 or 3 years is for individuals to become more and more autonomous, more and more responsible for their own well-being and their own health. And that's where homeopathy has a massive role to play.
So for an average person, how would you say you can impact their life and help them make changes in a more positive way? In other words, let's say Leo meets Sagittarius,
So
and they meet each other at the intersection of I don't know where to go from it. How can you help them?
every human is different, obviously. Every horoscope is different. Even identical twins are different by a little bit.
Absolutely.
I'll give a generic answer to this, but my catchphrase on my emails is negativity can't exist where there's humor. And the way you choose to see your own personal world, if you can bring humor and joy into it consciously and deliberately, then the world becomes a better place because it's all down to perception. You know, I'm fond of saying that there's one planet, but 8 billion different worlds. The way we see things is up to us. And you can actually choose. It's a bit of a radical statement, but you can actually choose to be joyful, happy, or depressed and sad. And I know that external circumstances and families and relationships and money and career and all of those things are good excuses for why you are the way you are. But you do have the choice at the bottom line to actually choose to actually go, right, I'm not going to get too attached to that. I want to bring joy into my life. So to me, we are the only species that's ever lived on this planet that can laugh at themselves. No other species has got the capacity for humor like humanity. Terence McKenna, who's another one of the heroes I don't have, said that human history represents such a radical break to the systems of biological organization that preceded it. It's so fundamentally different to anything else that's ever existed on this planet that it must be the response to some type of magnet in the future pulling us forward. There is a purpose to evolution, and it's to elevate our consciousness, expand our minds, and become more empathic, intuitive, compassionate, and environmentally minded. So that's my attitude.
So Steve, based on what you're saying in this great question that Hannah asked, as things are evolving, right? As we're evolving, as the systems are evolving, as the spirituality is evolving, as all of these things are evolving and things are changing, what are you noticing? Whether it's homeopathically, healthily, astrologically, what are the themes that are popping up now that you are seeing from your clients, patients, from the planets? I mean, what is the themes that people are coming with? Or is it from the times? What are you seeing? And then what are the planets telling you about the times?
The obviously everyone has different questions and different issues. But one of the most generic questions that seems to be developing just in recent years, 5 or 6 years, is, well, what's my purpose? Why am I here? To which I suggest to them, well, why do you think you volunteered to come here in the first place? With the emphasis on the word volunteered, because that sets them thinking, but if I volunteered, then there must be more to this than just being here on planet Earth. To me, death is not a final equation. This is just a transition of consciousness that releases me from the fear of death. So I actually feel that more than anything, you think people come to me, someone like me or the other forms of divinatory art specialists, and go, oh, when can I find the best partner? Or when can I get the best job? How can I make a lot of money? That's how it was 25 years ago. More and more now, it's how can I make a difference in the world? How can I evolve my own consciousness? How can I grow spiritually? And that's where complementary and alternative medicines and therapies are really growing into their own, finally, after now hundreds and hundreds of years of disparagement. Not a moment too soon. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Steve, I have a question. I am seeing from last 1 year, I am studying on ADHD and autism-like disease. So
Right.
astrology can be find that the child become free from this type of disease, or when she or he will cure, because this is very frustrating disease, and in last 5 to 6 years, this is growing very tremendously.
I'm good with spotting certain illnesses and diseases. Other astrologers I know are very good at spotting other illnesses and diseases that I personally don't recognize. And when we get together to exchange ideas, we both learn. There are certain things that there is no astrological signature for. Lyme disease, cancer. I cannot spot this astrologically. But what I do note, when I was a kid, living in Britain in the late 50s, early 60s, I was still living on foods grown in our garden. When I was a child at school, there was no obesity, no diabetes, less than 1% of cancer. But in the last 30 years, we've seen an upsurge in labels: ADHD, ADD, autism, split personality, bipolar. There's so many labels now. I'm not disputing that these syndromes exist. They do. But I ask myself, rather than treating the symptoms, let's look at the cause. What's the cause of all this? And I can't help but come to the conclusion that the single biggest cause of many of the maladies of today is processed food. There was no processed food when I was a child. It was only around the early 60s that we started seeing the first processed yogurts and the processed puddings. And I think the processed food is one of the biggest crimes against humanity, personally. I go out my way to cook a lot of vegetables and rice, and but I've been vegetarian 45 years, and I'm very conscientious about what you are, what you eat. I think the best way to look after yourself is to eat well. But not many people have got time to cook, so it's different now. So, there's some things you simply cannot spot. For example, I would never forecast death. You can easily see times where, if someone is already elderly and infirm, that they might leave. And you can suggest that this might happen so that the individual is prepared for it. But then you're helping them by realizing that, yes, they will do mourning, but they won't do crises and trauma. But you cannot, I've never been able to spot cancer. I know of no astrologer who can, because cancer seems to be a weird one. And that's what puzzles me so much. There was 1% of the cancer there is now, 50, 60 years ago. Why? You can look no further than the environment and the food we eat, in my opinion. I'm ranting now, so I'm going to stop and let you come back to me.
No.
I
So from the astrology point of view, shall we diagnose when the world is free from this processed food?
Sorry, I missed that last bit.
Shall we find from the astrology when the world is free from this fast processed food? Yeah. This is a silly question, I know, but
Okay, I'm very good at spotting digestive issues in a horoscope. There are certain configurations that talk very much around sensitivity, not so much allergy, but sensitivity and sometimes intolerance towards processed wheat, which is common in the charts of people who bloat whenever they eat lots of bread or pasta or pizza. And about 30 years ago, the agrochemical industry started adding a lot of protein into the wheat that is grown in our fields, which makes it much harder to digest. Again, I consider this wrong. I go out my way to avoid this stuff if I can, and so do many of the people I know. So at the end of the day, though, it does come down to choice, and that's why I want to give people the option as much as I can of being aware of different sides of the same coin. This goes back a long way. I'm going to go back briefly, if I may, to something I mentioned before we started talking. In the early 1600s, there was a medical practitioner called Nicholas Culpeper, who had a number of assassination contracts on his life from the College of Surgeons because he translated all of the surgical texts from Latin into English. And he was the first person to give British people conscious understanding of their own bodies. He also wrote Culpeper's Herbal, which many people will still have on their mantelpiece. And that gives the astrological signatures the best times to grow, plant, and use any number of different herbs. He's the grandfather of herbology and astrology. And a few years ago, I was in Salzburg in Austria, and I was with my friend, and we were just looking for a place to sit down and have a quiet sandwich. We found a very old churchyard with tombs and mausoleums. And she said, "Come over here, Steve, look." And we found the tomb of Nicholas von Hockenheim, commonly known as Paracelsus, the alchemist, the first of the alchemists. And he was the father of toxicology. And he said he was the first person to say that the way to treat an illness is with a very small amount of that illness. So I feel that Paracelsus should be up there in the halls of fame of the people, one of the founders of homeopathy, along with other people who are very similar, like, for example, Dr. Bach flower remedies. For anyone who hasn't been to the Bach Museum in central southern England, it's an amazing place.
Steve, I want to make sure that we get in a plug for you. So if somebody wants to work with you, how do they do that? How do they make the choice?
Well, I have two websites. I have stevejudd.co, which is where I do my readings from, but I do have a long waiting list. And then I have my other website, which is where I do all my teaching, my books, and that is a great name. It's called astrobabbleproductions.com. It's where I babble about astrology. And that's where I do all my broadcasts from and my teaching and my book sales. So, but I'm a self-made man. I do this, I've done this all off my own back. And I do eventually reply to every email. It can take me 3 or 4 months. But I do eventually reply.
Well, better late than never, right?
Yeah.
So
And
what
I
do
am
yeah.
the first one. I am the first one from this show to join you.
Fine.
You want a
Are
reading?
hearing it?
You want a
Yeah.
reading? You want a reading?
Yes.
Wow.
Because in last 2 to 3 years, I am also working on this ADHD and autism child, and I am giving the medicine according to the astrology. Uh, I am attached in my team in a
I will
astrologer, and
I
he
will do
told
my
me that
best.
yes, he told me that at this day you should give the medicine that will work. So I am doing for last 2 to 3 years. So I will connect you still from
Fine.
the first time. Yeah,
I will do my
thank you so
very
much.
best.
Yeah, yeah.
I will-
Do you want to share anything about your fees? Is
Oh
that
yeah, I charge loads of money, loads and loads and loads of money. I'm not as expensive as most American astrologers because I'm not greedy. I make enough money. I've been in debt since age 17 through to age 60. In the last 6 or 7 years, for the first time in my life, I've become debt free. And now I've got enough money to put a roof over my head, food in my cupboard, clothes on my back, and to be relatively comfortable. And it's not about how much you got, it's what you do with it that counts. I can't take it with me, so I might as well spend it while I'm here, leave a bit for my kids, obviously. So I don't charge exorbitant amounts, but I do charge a lot of money because I do a lot of research before the reading, and it takes me 2 to 3 hours to do a chart properly. So I charge about, in American dollars, $250 an hour, which is about half the price of some of the American astrologers. But hey, um,
And how long is your reading?
that's for an hour. I also do 30-minute sessions and 90-minute sessions, and prices are graded according to that. But I also put a lot of free stuff out into the world because when I was a kid, when I was just starting with astrology, and I realized how important it was, I said to all my friends, when I die, I want astrology should be taught in schools on my gravestone, because if astrology were taught in schools within 2 generations, we would see an end to warfare and violence and misogyny and racism. Then the internet happened. And now Zoom's happened, and I find myself teaching up to 100 people, 200 people at a time. And I charge micro payments because then everyone can afford it. And if you've got 200 people giving you micro payments, you've got enough money. And the idea is to empower other people to know their own astrology, to know themselves, and then to pass that knowledge on. And out of the last 200 people I've taught, 9 of them, to my knowledge, are now out there doing readings for other people. So I'm looking forward eventually to be able to pass my database on to everyone, to my students, once well, I'm never going to retire, but when I'm no longer here.
so? I guess, and I don't think we've asked this question yet. And if we have, it's been embedded in other questions. But I think it would be a perfect time just to kind of ask, what are you noticing what are the planets telling you now? I mean, are they pissed off? Or how can they not be pissed off because things happen the way they're supposed to? I mean, so how do you make sense of that? Like everything's happening according to a system, or based on, I think, what you're saying, if I understand your intelligence as well enough, because you are super intelligent and also approachable. There's a pattern. There's the answers or the information or the support, the help is here. It's as plain as
It
day.
is. I can, to me, it's a conscious universe. It's a holographic universe. And each planet has its own life force. And to anyone who chooses to doubt that, go and talk to your local police officer or hospital nurse and ask them how busy their places are at full moon as opposed to any other time of the year. Or go on the shortwave radio where you can hear Jupiter's radio bursts. You can This is life. Different to what we understand life as being, but it is life nevertheless. And it has meaning. And I don't necessarily think that the planetary energies are upset with us, because I don't feel that they have that capacity for emotion as we understand it. Instead, I feel that they are offering us windows of opportunity to accelerate our evolution, to grow and expand our consciousness, become kinder to each other. But it is a choice. And if we choose not to do that as a species, then it's inevitable that we will go the way of the dinosaurs and something else will spring up. But I still retain optimism. But I do feel that we are heading into it's like we're on the inside of one of those old school metal pencil sharpeners, and we're being compressed into this point at the very end. And once we get through that point, if we do, we will expand into glory. And that point of transcendence, that nexus point, is, from my astrological studies, very, very soon. Very soon. Single figure years, more like 2 or 3, 4 years at the most from now. And the world's going to be a very different place in 4 years' time. And it could be pretty disastrous, and it could also be brilliant. And it's most likely going to be a mixture of both. What if?
So I have a question for you. We know about Dolores Cannon, who writes about the influence of stars and its transformations and life changes and influence of other planets and other civilization into our era. We also know that there's certain planets responsible for different diseases or influences, and we can combine this together or not. We definitely in a transition process. But how we are able to help with your knowledge of astrology, with your help to just a regular viewer to ease the transformation. And I give you an example. Let's say in someone's chart right now, there is a period of loneliness, and no matter what, they will not be able to meet their mate or find their partner. And this is the period of time of solitude, of spiritual development, yoga, meditation, you name it. But how you come across that person to say, hey, listen, be positive. Things will change and clear up for you, and another 6 months of influence of other planets. When you're saying that the planets are not as influential and we can always change it. If there is a guide and a pathway, how we can help these people to navigate through that.
Thing is, in my astrological community, I'm known as the bulldozer. I am not subtle, tactful, or diplomatic. I don't go in there and go, "Oh, you poor thing, let me help you." You know, I go in there and I go, "Right, this is the situation you're in. I'm going to suggest an alternative. If you choose to do this, you will succeed. You will thrive. You will grow. You'll become happy. And if you choose not to do this, then the chances are you're probably going to stay like this for the rest of your life, or at least for the next few years." And when I can empower the individual to realize that they have the choice of whether they want to stay the same, which is in many cases like, oh no, I don't want to keep doing this, or take chances and move forward under their own steam, they will take tentative steps forward. Sometimes all it takes is one step outside the comfort zone, outside the safety zone, to realize, oh, I can do this. Oh, let's take a bigger step. And sometimes the joy you see in people when they make those big steps forward and they transform and regenerate and rebirth their lives, it's the most joyful experience. And this is not because of any, I'm not a miracle worker. I'm just pointing out patterns to people. And when I can look back and go, oh yeah, that was really difficult in 1989. And then there was 2017. That was a really bad time for you because of this, that, and the other. And they'll go, how do you know all this? I say, well, I can see it in the chart. And then if I can see what's happened in the past, there's a reasonably good potential for me to be able to project forward into the future and say, well, these are the potentials for the future. Again, you never predict. You can forecast, but not predict.
I have another question for you. Some astrologers do something called investigation backwards because it's very difficult to actually have your exact time of birth. And I remember I've done this investigation myself. I wasn't born at the time when I was told I was born. I was born 6 minutes earlier, which makes a big difference in a world of planets. And the astrologer have done through investigation backward. Do you
Yes.
also do that? Mhm.
Yes. It's I wouldn't say it's simple because it's not. But many countries record the birth time accurately. Most Western European countries, America, Canada, many of the Asian countries, Australia. The only countries I know that definitely do not record birth times are England, which is, I'm really irritated by that. But many countries do. When you don't know a birth time, there are a number of ways you can find the birth time out. It takes time. You look at where the moon is at the start of a day, because in the course of a day, the moon will move through nearly half of a zodiac sign. So during that course of the day, the moon will make 3 or 4 different patterns to the other planets in the sky. So if you're born at 2 a.m., you might be kind and benevolent and soft and gentle and very homely. Whereas if you're born at 9 a.m., 10 a.m., you might be a lot more assertive and projective and dynamic. Whereas if you're born at 8 p.m., you might find that you've got many more problems with mummy or daddy and you're not very good at taking orders. So you can straight away work out which of these patterns work. So you've narrowed the birth time down to 3 or 4 hours each way. And then you can, by eliminating what's not happening, you can narrow it down to a range of 3 or 4 hours each way. And then you can calculate it by using the possible different ascendants, which do sometimes govern facial appearance and body shape. And then you get it down to about an hour each way. And then you say, okay, right. So we know your birth time is either between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. Right. Mars is coming up in the sky. It's going to pass over this area of your chart. There will be a 3 or 4 day period over somewhere in the next 2 months where you will find yourself getting much more irritable, volatile, frustrated, and impatient. Let me know when that is. And then you've got the birth time. It takes time, but it can be done.
Do you also use person's life events like marriage, divorce, childbirth, etc.
Yes.
into that?
Yes.
Yeah. Phenomenal.
It's
Great
called
answer.
birth time detection. It's called.
Amazing.
Well, this has been, you know what? I didn't even hardly look at the time. And usually I try to look at the time because I'm trying to keep up with the time so we don't go over time. But it was so interesting and informative that I thoroughly enjoyed it. I know we all did. And we thank you so much, Steve, for being
My
here.
pleasure. I'd like to add one final sentence,
Sure.
please, because I know a lot of my clients and friends will be watching this because I'm going to put this out on my channel later. Up until about 8 or 9 years ago, I was take it or leave it around homeopathy. I would always have a few homeopathic remedies. I was never quite sure about it because I couldn't prove it. And then it changed my life. It helped me recover simply because I gave up on the need to work out how it worked. I just accepted that it did work. Since that time, I've now got 60 or 70 different homeopathic remedies. In my case, I swear by it. And I believe that homeopathy has, at the very least, as valid a role as astrology in the emerging consciousness revolution.
That's a good plug for everybody and for homeopathy.
Yes,
And everybody
yes.
appreciates that. Deepak, did you want to say something?
Yes, definitely. This is really good experience you shared, Steve, and we need to listen more in your next shows. So, and in next, we will connect with the homeopathy, and we are listening your experience with the homeopathy and astrology. That is wonderful.
Love to. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hannah,
I really enjoyed this.
final wish. I truthfully wish that you are able to educate people to make a choice to follow actually an astrology and not a simplified astrology made for a monkey mind. I gratefully appreciate you being on the show and the time we spent, the knowledge you have shared with us, and it's been an absolute privilege. Thank you so much for that. It's been wonderful to have you here.
I've enjoyed every second of it, particularly the difficult questions.
Well,
I'm happy.
we try to be accommodating. So everyone out there, we thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be here again next month with another special show. Please join us and come visit our website, Homeopathy World Community. And also just remember, we have this fabulous magazine that comes out quarterly, and Hannah has been working to the bone to put it together, Clever H. And we talk about all things healthy, and written and shared by homeopaths. But our information is for everyone, and we want you to participate just like we did today. So please join us. Come reach out to me anytime at Marilyn Shannon, SHANNON.com, and I will steer you in the correct direction. And I want to thank Amnon, who's been here with us the whole time in the background, making sure everything is working. And we'd love to see you again. And if you have an idea for a show, you want to be a guest, you want to just connect, reach out to us. And Steve, thank you so very much for your wisdom and for the work you're doing and for the way you're doing your work, because it shows.
Bless you. Bless you.
So everyone out there, mwah, happy holidays.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Happy New Year, everyone.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by StreamingGear.com and DeltaForce.net.